Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we are going to be discussing the difference between a block and an inline element. Now, a block element is an element that takes up the entire width of its container. Now, what does that mean? Well, for example, if you have a div, which is a block element, and it has content, right? It has content and all that stuff. It will take up the entire width of the body if it's a direct descendant of the body. If you have a div inside of another div that is 100 pixels high by 100 pixels wide, the div inside of the div with those size constraints will take up the entire 100 pixels width of that outer div as long as it has some kind of content. Now, an inline element is an element that takes up only the amount of room that it absolutely needs to fit its content and nothing more. Right, so with an inline element, if you have any other inline element or text around that element, all of it will be on the same line, and then if it wraps, it'll go to the next line, and so on. However, if you have a block element right after an inline element, then the block element will be right below the inline element, and if you have the inline element below a block element, the block element will be above the inline element. Now, I've put together a little bit of code here to show you exactly how that all works. You don't need to worry about the style tag and the CSS inside of it. Just know that they are styling the different spans and the div that are in this document. So if we go to our browser here, you can see the demonstration I have set up. The top two elements are span elements. Those are inline. So because they are right next to each other in the code, they're right on top of each other in the code and all that stuff, they appear left to right, right next to each other on the actual page. So the first span is to the left of the page, to the left on the page, and then the second span is right next to it and takes up only the amount of space that its text requires that it takes. And then right below those spans is a div. Now, you can see the div is taking up the entire width of the page, even though the text does not take up that much space. We can even decrease the font, we can even decrease the zoom level of the page, and you can see that even more drastically. So, that is pretty much the difference between an inline and a block element. In CSS, we have inline block as well, and an inline block is essentially an inline element, but you can style it as if it was a block element. But that pretty much is the difference between an inline element and a block element. There's not a whole lot to that difference, but as long as you nail in your brain that inline elements only take up the space that they need and will end up right next to each other if placed next to each other in the code, and a block element takes up the entire width of its container, you should be good to go. So thank you all so very much for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video where we will begin looking into image and multimedia style elements.